Hello and welcome back to CQ, the AWS Certification Quiz Show, where I'm here for our finale episode of Season 2 with the fabulous May. May, welcome back to CQ. I know you've been up to quite a few things since you were last on, and I can't wait to hear about it. But for the benefit of any new viewers, tell us a bit about what you do here at AWS.
Thanks for having me, MJ. My name is May. I'm a Solution Architect here at AWS. I look after the New South Wales customer at AWS. So, as a SA, I work with customers. Like lately, I have been working on the workshop webinars. I had a few webinars last week.
You've been doing a lot of them recently, haven't you?
Yeah, I love it. I feel like it's one of my favorite things, part of my job. And so like trainings and giving like educational workshop to the customer, and a few upcoming in the
I remember not long ago when you did your first webinar, May, and that was when I said to John, we have to get May on the show.
Yeah.
You just killed it, and it's just gone up and up from there. So thank you for coming back. Now, with regard to what you've been up to since the last show, you did get your first certification. Congratulations.
I know, thank you. That was, it was a few weeks ago. I had my first certifications before I was on the show. Just right after I had it.
It was like the day after or something, wasn't it?
Something like that. So, yeah, it was good. It was really nerve-wracking because that's my first certifications, but it was a good experience. The whole process is like the exam process. It was great. Yeah.
Wow, well congratulations. It's no mean feat at all. And I do know producer John has been so cheeky in the background because he's brought you back and we're actually doing a SysOps show today. So as soon as you get your first cert, we've switched you up and changed your show. So I'm looking forward to that. And I've just seen a little comment in the chat there from my children, so not only am I feeling emotional about it being the finale episode of the season, we don't know yet if we'll be back for a season 3. Fingers crossed, we'll have to wait and get the feedback from all you at home. But I've just seen that comment in the window. I was like, hi girls, I miss you too. I'll be on as soon as I can. I'm with the lovely May today, so I'm in safe hands, don't worry.
So MJ,
yes.
you want it? So because this is the final episode, right? We're gonna switch things up a little.
This has happened to me a few times on the show.
So can you tell us where we are today on the green screen?
May actually came in this morning and offered me to choose our screen today. I've never had that before, so thank you so much, May. It was such a lovely thing to do.
I would love to hear what you have to talk about.
You can see we are here streaming from our very own trapeze room here in the AWS office in Sydney. And I just want to give a massive shout out to all the team at Sydney Trapeze School, where myself and my children went to visit and have a bit of go on the trapeze yesterday. They were absolutely wonderful. My tiny little kids were amazing. They were so brave, and they actually went on this very trapeze you see on the screen.
It was
so high.
Look at that.
They were so much braver than I was. My little girls.
Well done.
My knees gave out on the side watching them.
Like watching it.
Like literally, I thought I was going to pass out, and they just went up there, walked up this big rickety ladder. The team from Sydney Trapeze School were wonderful, just encouraging them, and both my girls did it.
Love it. Yeah.
While I'm passing out on the sidelines. So, girls, well done. I'm so proud of you. And May, thank you for letting me choose my very first screen today. I really appreciate it. All right, shall we get into today's finale episode, SysOps Administrator. It's an associate level exam, so same level as our developer and our Solutions Architect exam. May?
Cool, let's get started.
Let's do it. Here we go, right into question number 1. Starting off really fun with Amazon EBS.
It's my favorite topic.
There we go. Win already. All right. An Amazon EC2 instance is using an additional Amazon EBS volume with a size of 100 gigabytes. To reduce costs, you want to reduce this volume to 30 gigabytes, May. How can this be done while maintaining data stored on the volume?
Okay, so really interesting first question.
We're getting straight in there.
EBS, the elastic block storage attaching to the EC2, the instance. To reduce cost, you want to reduce the volume of 30 gigs. So it's reducing the volume side of EBS. And the question is, how do we do it while maintaining the data store on the volume? Set the volume. So the first one is set the new volume size while creating the Amazon Machine Image AMI of the instance, and use it to launch a new instance to replace the existing instance. It sounds right. So, but
a lot of work.
A lot of work. That's true. So, creating a new AMI, creating a new instance from the AMI, it takes a lot of work. And at the same time, I think we can simplify it without having to create new instances from the AMI and things like that. So we just keep going.
Just a reminder for all our viewers at home, please type in the number of the answer that you think it is, and it will update our poll and help May along. Number 2 that we're up to does have a few votes already.
Okay.
In our poll.
Nice. So let's look at number 2. Create a new 30 gig volume, attach it to the instant, copy across the content of the volume. So that sounds about right, because you want to create a new 30 gig volume, attach to the instance, and then copy the content. So it's quite simple, and then attach it to the EC2. So
it sounds quite simple.
It sounds right, but I'll keep going.
Okay, let's double check.
And then number 3 is use modify volume and change the volume size. Okay, so modify volume is one of the features of the EBS where you can modify the volume to change the volume size and the volume type. Yep. That there is a catch that you can only increase the volume. You can't really shrink the volume, which is the questions that asking here. So number 3 is
that's right, Mr. Bob. Mr. Bob just quoted you as you were saying it. How good is that? I wish 3 was possible, but it doesn't work to decrease the size.
Yeah,
amazing.
Awesome.
Great
That's
minds.
good.
Yeah.
And number 4 is create a snapshot of the volume and create a new 30 gig volume from the snapshot. So basically a snapshot is taking the exact replica of the existing
the original,
100 gig.
Yep.
So it will, if you create a snapshot of the volume, you will end up exactly 100 gig volume, and it wouldn't do what the questions want to do. So I'm going to stick with number 2.
Locking in number 2. We did get a couple of votes. Most people have gone for number 4, so hopefully May's explanation has explained why. Hopefully number 2 is the answer. Let's double check. Flying start, May, even though we've totally switched up which exam you're now doing. I don't know if that was a quick tip from John on which exam you should do following your essay associate exam, actually. Little tip from producer John there. Let us move on to question number 2. All right.
Another EC2.
we apparently getting some audio interference, so John will sort that out in the background, and hopefully some of you can lip read, and if not, we'll be back up with our audio as soon as possible. We'll continue in the meantime.
Cool.
May. Question number 2, EC2. A web application runs on an Amazon EC2 instance with an Amazon RDS database. To make the application highly available, the EC2 instance has been replicated and a load balancer placed in front of the EC2 instances. While the web application continues to serve static content, administrators report that they are unable to log in to the web app. May, how can this be corrected?
Cool, that's a very long question. So you have the EC2 instance and you have the Amazon RDS database, and to make it highly available, you want to put the load balancer in front of the EC2 instance, and it's a very common use case where you have a load balancer to distribute the traffic across the EC2 instance. But the problems here is the administrator, it's reported that they are unable to log into their web app. So I have heard a lot about this scenario with the customers, and a few,
We're just adjusting mics over here.
Is that better?
Keep talking.
Okay. Cool. So where are we? So I'll just look at the answer. So the first one is admin should log into the Amazon RDS database, not the web app. Well, the questions say, thanks, John. The questions say they're trying to log into the web app, and we do not want to log into the RDS database. So we will skip number 1. Number 2 is activate sticky sessions on the load balancer. So that sounds about right. So for the sticky sessions, it's basically help the load balancer to send the request to the same sessions and save the cookies, so the load balancer to write to the same server and same instances with a request. So number 2 sounds about right, but we will keep going. So number 3 is enable HTTPS for the target group. So target group is kind of, it's a group of resources where you want to send the traffic to those target group.
Yep.
But having the HTTPS secure connections, it does the job, but it doesn't really resolve the questions it's asking.
Yeah.
And number 4 is store the login credential in the AWS Secret Manager. So basically, the Secret Manager job is to manage the API key, database password, and all these management and rotations of the key management. Not the key management, but the process of the key managing process. That's what the Secret Manager does. But storing the login in there wouldn't help the administrator to log into the web app. But so I'm going to stick with number 2, the sticky sessions.
You have 100% convinced that it's also number 2 on the poll, which is awesome. I think we're looking good. So let's reveal the answer to question 2. It is indeed number 2. Well done, everyone on the poll. How are you feeling, May? 2 down?
Good. feeling better.
Are you feeling more comfortable than the first time you were on the show?
Yeah, definitely. I feel more comfortable, yeah.
Good to hear.
But not the questions.
Yeah. Let's wait and see what John's got in store for you, though, right? Question number 3, we're at 53. Here we go. May, you have a DNS name configured in Amazon Route 53 that has an A record pointing to the elastic IP address of an Amazon EC2 instance. A new EC2 instance has been provisioned with the updated software. How can you perform an immediate cutover of traffic to the new instance?
Cool. So
I got some really wordy questions today, John.
I know. It's a lot of bits and pieces like yes. A record, elastic IP. I want to perform an immediate cutover, so that's to catch that immediately cut over from the one traffic to the another instance. But I want to break down a few things in the questions. So first is the A record. I think, is it A record? Is it alias? Oh, address record.
Address record.
Address,
yeah.
Is that address?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Andrew. So address record, where you can keep the IP address of the instance and the elastic IP address. So elastic IP address is basically the public IPv4 address for the dynamic routing. So that's attached to the EC2 instance, but the question here is to do an immediate cutover.
Yeah. So that's your key thing.
That's the key things here. So
did that help when you were sitting your exam a few weeks ago? Is it really clear? Point out the keywords in the question. Go from there.
Yeah. So that's a really good point, because in the exams, in my previous exam, there are questions that are a little tricky, but there is the catch words in the questions, what they want exactly to look for, and there were in the answer there might be some points that kind of like a trap. It could be you can do this, but the question is exactly asking for this one, immediate cutover. So that kind of thing.
Really need to work on. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Cool. So number 1, let's look at some answers. So added the A record point to the IP address of the new instance. So we can do the address record pointing to the new IP address of the instance. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, it's going to take a bit of time to propagate down to those addresses. So, but the question asks immediate cutover, so we will skip number 1.
Okay.
And number 2 is detach the ENI, which is the elastic network interface, from the first instance and attaches to the new instance. So you can attach the ENI, but for the primary ENI, you can't really attach or detach the primary ENI from the instance to the another one.
Yeah.
So number 2 is crossed out.
Number 3, we have 100% on the poll at the minute. So let's have a look at this one.
Cool. So reassign the elastic IP address to the new instance. So so elastic IP address, that's the purpose of the elastic IP address for the dynamic routing. So keep the public IP address for the instance, and you can just attach from one instance and then move it to the another instance. But I'll keep going. Seems like number 3 is an answer, but you never know. You never know, John.
Every answer.
Yeah.
Did you say you never know?
You never know.
I love that. This is very true.
So number 4 is a record to use the weighted routing. So basically, a weighted routing is where you can specify the amount of traffic that you want to route to a particular resource, and you can see like, I want to send 20% of the traffic to this resource, but the rest of 70% to the other resource, that kind of things. Then you can weight it based on that scenario, awesome. And change the weighting of the second instance to 100%. So it's it will work. You can kind of do that, but at the same time, it's gonna take time, and it takes time to propagate down to the second instance and change those things. So it won't do what the question is asking, the immediate cutover. So so I'm gonna stick with the elastic IP number 3.
Locking in number 3 with our entire audience as well, basically because we're saying everything else takes propagation time. Mm-hmm. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Locking in number 3. Well done, May. Well done, everyone on the poll.
Thank you.
We are flying through these today. Just a quick break to check on our chat. Do you see what I did?
We're just flying.
I thought I got away with it, and then John's dancing in the background. Quick check on our chat. Yes, thank you, Jabbersoft. All of the previous episodes of this season and season 1 are at the link that producer John has popped in the chat there, so please check them out and keep feeding back. You'll see there's an email alias at the end of our show today, so if you do have feedback and you want to see a season 3, please do let us know. Otherwise, pop your comments in the chat. All right, should we jump back to the questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Question number 4. Another EBS question. Wow.
We can't get away from EC2 and EBS.
I think he really does think you are our EBS SME, subject matter expert in the room. In our trapeze room.
Maybe after this show, maybe.
Yeah, that's it. All right, May. An application is running on an Amazon EC2 Linux instance. You have been asked to duplicate the instance for high availability. The application stores data on a locally attached Amazon EBS volume. What is the simplest way that both instances can access the same data?
Wow. So the question is asking the simplest way that both instances can access the same data.
Yes.
Really interesting.
Cool.
Okay. Let's look at some answers. So the first one is store the data on Amazon FSX for Luster. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
I like Luster. Okay. Do you know what Luster means?
No, please. Tell me.
It's like, I think Luster means it's a combination of a Linux cluster.
Linux cluster. Oh, so it's a portmanteau.
What's a portmanteau?
A combination of 2 words.
Ah, okay,
yeah,
that's
like
really
a podcast
interesting.
Is iPod and broadcast.
I never know that.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Go. Teaching each other.
Yeah.
I love this. Any other portmanteaus? Pop them in the chat. As
Portmanteau.
well as your answer that you think
Luster.
It is.
Cool.
Luster. Linux and cluster. I love that.
Luster.
I've learned something today.
Linux and cluster. So basically, the Amazon FSX for Luster is for the high-performance computing work. So like high-performance computing, like video processing or image rendering kind of thing. So for these questions with the EC2 and EBS, it might probably overkill what the job is trying to do. So we will park that one and move on to number 2. So store the data in Amazon S3 and mount it on both instances using S3FS. Well, we don't usually recommend to mount it at S3. Maybe you could do it as the initial load, but not to use it as a mount volume for the instances. And if you notice, EBS is a block level storage, and S3 is the object level storage. So there are different types of storage.
Great call out. Yeah.
So. Yeah, so we will skip number 2, and number 3, use the EBS multi-attach. So that sounds about right. And I just want to point out there, so EBS multi-attach is the new feature, and it's released in the February this year. So it's a pretty new feature.
June, July, August. Okay, so we are over 6 months since that release of the update, which means it could start populating on our exams.
Yep. So counting.
Live on air, counting by fingers. There you go.
EBS multi-attach. So that sounds about right. So that's fit the purpose of the question. So multi-attach allow up to a 16 Linux EC2 instance in the same availability zones where you can concurrently attach to the Linux EC2 instances. So number 3 sounds like an answer, but we will keep going to the number 4, which is taking the snapshot of the EBS volume and create a new volume from the snapshot. So taking the snapshot it makes sense. It's copied from the one volume and created to another one, but the questions say the instance want to access the same data, so it doesn't fit the purpose. So I'm gonna stick with number 3.
Sticking with number 3, let's reveal our answer.
Oh.
Had a few 100% in a row as well, so loving these explanations. Okay, if you do have any questions for May, we do still have 10 minutes left of the show. Please feel free to pop them in the chat. And in the meantime, we will move on to question number 5, Amazon RDS. And a great reminder that actually all of our database services are always pre-populated with Amazon and not AWS.
Ah,
do you remember we were talking about that on your last show?
What's the difference between Amazon and AWS? Yeah, I remember that.
We, I think the show after yours, we did a little bit on that, and for database services, it's always Amazon.
Oh, that's good to know. Make my life easier.
One little tip that we know what to pre-populate. All right, May. You have a production application using Amazon RDS for MySQL. You wish to replicate the data each night to a test database also running on Amazon RDS. The existing test data should be deleted and replaced with the production data. May, how can you automate this process in the simplest manner?
Cool. I like this question.
Good.
I was an engineer before, so I have seen a few of these scenarios in the real database, like where in the real world, where you wanted to have a replica of the production database and then use it to the test for the test database. Yep. And we want to use the real data, not the real data in terms of the PII data, but the real data which help to do some testing on the applications running on that. Okay. So, but the question here is, how do we automate this process? Of course, we want to automate this process because it's going to be a daunting job to do it every day, like manually.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's look at some answers. So the first one is use a duplicate database on the production database. We don't have that feature, maybe just yet. We don't have this feature to duplicate the database. Number 2 is create a snapshot of the production database and use it to create a new test database. So that seems about right. So creating a snapshot of the production database would take a copy of whatever the production database has, and then create a new test database. So number 2 seems like an answer, but I'll keep going. And number 3 is use the multi-AZ, then promote the secondary server to a new primary server for the test database. So multi-AZ here is the purpose of the multi zones, Oh yeah, so multi-AZ, multi-availability zone is to highly available, highly durable purpose. So it's not for the testing purpose. So it doesn't fit the use case here. So I'll skip on to number 4. Use the data migration service to replicate the production database to the test database. So data migration service, you will probably replicate the data, but in the questions, it say the existing test data should be deleted. So data migration service, it's not going to be like recreated and deleted. It just load the data to the test database. So same, it doesn't really fit the purpose. So I'm going to stick with number 2.
I think I agree, and we also have a great case for being able to stop the database overnight, right? And save money because we're in that test environment.
That's
Nothing's
true.
needed overnight.
Yeah. So we don't want to keep it running the whole time.
No, absolutely not. So we're locking in number 2. We're going against our online audience for the first time, I think, today. Let's reveal who got it right, May or our audience. You were looking a bit nervous there.
Yeah, I was like, oh.
It is indeed number 2. All right, I think we got time. Well, maybe even 2 questions. Let's see how we go. We've definitely got time to fit number 6 in. So here we go. An application running on Amazon EC2 needs to make API calls to a third-party service from a fixed IP address that is on an allow list. However, the instance changed IP address after a few weeks and was denied access. May, how can this be avoided in the future?
Cool. All right.
Loving the IPs today.
It's a lot of IP address questions in this session.
Just throwing them at you today.
Cool. So we have EC2 instance and fixed IP address on the allowed list. And so the question here is, how can we avoid this in the future where the IP address get denied access? Let's look at the answer.
Let's have a look.
Number 1 is enable termination protections on the instance. So termination protections is the feature of the EC2 instance, but the main purpose is to avoid the accidental terminations of your EC2 instance. So it doesn't really resolve the question that's asking here. So I'll move on to number 2 is put the instance in the VPC subnet with the CIDR range containing only one IP address. Yeah, we don't want to put that just in the VPC for this purpose. Put it in the CIDR range and containing only IP address. So it's not for this purpose. Like you don't really want to have a one IP address CIDR range. So let's keep on number 3. Stop and start the instance, and then add the new IP address to the list. So that's a thing here. So like if you stop and start the instance, what's going to happen is you will be assigned with a new public IP address. So it doesn't do the job of the question is asking where you want to have the same IP2 in the allowed list. So number 3 is not going to do the job. Number 4
leaves us with number 4, which is where people are voting for.
Cool.
Yes.
So that makes me feel better.
A lot of elastic IP for May today.
So yeah, so it's kind of like elastic IP that we talked about earlier in the question. So elastic IP is the public IPv4, and it's for the dynamic routing. So you can have the elastic IP attached to the instance, and it will help you to have the elastic IP in your allowed list. So it sounds like an answer to me. Number 4, please.
Certainly seems to be. Close that poll and reveal our answer to question number 6. Absolutely.
Cool.
Alrighty. I think we've got time to go to question 7. We haven't had 7 questions in a while. I don't know if you saw, we had to bring Mr. Derek Bingham back on 2 times because we only got through 3 questions on his first show. So we do have a part 2 to episode 16 if you're going back on that one. But with May, we are very lucky to go on to question number 7. Hi, Derek. Amazon S3. You have an Amazon S3 bucket with several million objects. You have been asked to copy these objects to an Amazon S3 bucket in a different AWS account. What is the most reliable way to perform this operation?
Cool. I like S3 questions.
Hi, Gabe. Getting a few hellos over here, so just throwing them back.
Hello.
Good one to start. Stop the season on S3. I like this. Let's do it.
Questions. So we have millions of objects to move from S3 buckets from one account to a different AWS account. And what is the most reliable way? Number 1 is use the AWS data sync. So basically, the AWS data sync is to to sync the on-premises data to the AWS cloud or the other way
between.
around.
Yep.
So not between the two AWS different accounts. So
yeah, not to the S3 buckets.
Yeah. So I move on to number 2, which is Amazon S3 batch operations. So the batch operations, I really like batch operations. It's a super useful features on the S3. So batch operations allow to do, like the name say, like batch job of moving objects. If you have the replacing your tag, renaming or doing the access control list. If you want to change the ACL list on your millions of objects, that is super useful. So number 2 sounds like an answer, but I'll keep going. Number 3 is use the AWS CLI, AWS S3 sync command. So AWS S3 sync is to sync from the source to a destinations, but it's quite manual, and you might be missing some other things, when you are doing the manual syncing of this job. So that's the question is asking the most reliable way. So maybe not number 3. I'll move on to number 4.
All right. We did have quite a few number 3 actually. So hopefully that's explaining why we don't think it's number 3. Let's check out the last answer.
So the last one is run the S3 distributed copy DCP on the Amazon Elastic MapReduce EMR. So on the EMR, you can do the S3 distributed copy, but it's not simple and it's not straightforward. The question doesn't mention about the EMR, so I will probably skip number 4, and I'm going to stick with number 2 for this one.
Sticking with number 2 to finish us off today. Oh, it is 50-50
50-50.
on the poll.
Wow.
I haven't seen that in a while. Between 2 and 3. Here we go. Final reveal of the season. 100%. May, thank you so much for coming back on CQ. It's been a pleasure to have you on for the second time, and a massive shout out to all the guests that we've had on through this season. We started off with Miss Chris Howard right back at the beginning.
Wow.
Yes, hey Chris, if you're watching.
Hey Chris.
And we're finishing just as strong with the lovely May. Thank you most importantly to all of our viewers. It's been a blast. Keep popping in your comments. The next slide will give you our email address if you do want to contact us with feedback or any call outs for season number 3. In the meantime, thank you, Scary Bingo. We love you too. Thank you for that lovely comment. And we will hopefully see you soon at reInvent, where we'll have a few CQ surprises for you coming up. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, May.
Thanks for having me.